The Dominion of Kashar had ruled the stars for 60,000 years. Their empire stretched across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They had conquered 11,000 worlds. They had crushed 10,000 species under their boots. They had never known defeat. Fleet Commander Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, and watched the blue planet grow larger on his display screens. He had done this many times before. 900 worlds had fallen to his fleet. 900 species had knelt before him or died screaming. This small blue world would be no different. The Armada had emerged from fold space 6 hours ago, just beyond the orbit of the 8th planet. 1,200 capital ships, 50,000 smaller vessels, 3 million soldiers ready to land and claim another world for the Dominion. It was more force than necessary for such a primitive species, but the High Council wanted this done quickly. The blue planet sat in a perfect position for expansion into this region of space. Vorath studied the information his sensors had gathered about the target world. The natives called it Earth. They had only recently discovered how to leave their own atmosphere. Their fastest ships would take months to reach even their nearest neighbor planets. They communicated using simple radio waves. They still fought wars among themselves, using chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Pathetic, Vorath thought. These creatures were barely more than animals. His tactical officer approached with a data tablet. "Commander, we have completed our analysis of the target species. They number approximately 8 billion individuals. They have no unified government. Their military forces are scattered and primitive. Estimated time to complete subjugation: 3 standard cycles." Vorath nodded slowly. "Begin broadcasting the submission decree on all frequencies. Let them know their masters have arrived." The message went out across every wavelength. It was translated into every language the sensors had detected on Earth. The message was simple: surrender or die. Your world now belongs to the Dominion of Kashar. Resistance is meaningless. Cooperation will be rewarded with survival. On Earth, the message was received with terror and confusion. Governments scrambled. Military forces mobilized, though they knew their weapons would be useless against ships that could cross galaxies. Religious leaders spoke of the end times. Scientists stared at their screens in disbelief. Ordinary people looked up at the sky and wondered if they would see tomorrow. But Vorath cared nothing for their fear. He had seen it countless times before. The fear would turn to acceptance. The acceptance would turn to obedience. And another world would join the Dominion. The fleet began its slow advance toward the inner planets. There was no need to hurry. The prey had nowhere to run. It was during this advance that Vorath first noticed something strange. His chief sensor operator called for his attention with an unusual tremor in her voice. She was a veteran of 200 campaigns, not easily shaken. "Commander," she said, "I am detecting anomalous readings from the 4th planet." Vorath walked to her station and looked at the data. The 4th planet was a small, red, dead world. The natives called it Mars. It had no atmosphere worth mentioning, no liquid water, no life. Yet the sensors showed energy signatures coming from its surface. Faint, but definitely there. What kind of energy signatures? Vorath demanded. The sensor operator's fingers moved across her controls. "Unknown, Commander. They do not match any technology in our databases. They appear to be coming from several locations across the planet's surface. Structures of some kind." Vorath frowned. "The natives have no capability to build structures on that world. These structures are not native construction, Commander. Based on geological analysis, they have been there for..." She paused, checking her readings twice. "Commander, these readings must be wrong. The analysis suggests these structures are over 3 billion years old." Vorath felt a cold sensation move through his body. 3 billion years. The Dominion was ancient by any measure, but their oldest records went back only 100,000 years. What could have built something 3 billion years ago? It is an error, he declared firmly. Our sensors are malfunctioning after the fold space jump. Recalibrate and scan again. The sensor operator did as ordered. The results were the same. Around the fleet, other ships began reporting similar readings. The energy signatures were becoming stronger as they drew closer to the fourth planet. Some ships reported picking up a signal, a transmission on frequencies so old that their communication systems barely recognized them as intentional broadcasts. Vorath's communications officer managed to partially decode the signal. It was a warning. The language was unknown, older than any in the Dominion's vast databases, but the meaning was clear enough. It was a warning to turn back. It was a declaration that this system was protected. The bridge crew looked to their commander with uncertain eyes. In all their campaigns, they had never encountered anything like this. Warnings from civilizations that had died before the Dominion was born. Structures older than complex life on most worlds. But Vorath was a commander of the Dominion, and the Dominion did not turn back. The Dominion did not recognize warnings. The Dominion conquered, and whatever ancient ghosts had left these relics would not stop them. Ignore the signal, Vorath commanded. Whatever built those structures is long dead. Dead things cannot harm the living. Continue our advance. The fleet moved forward, past the cold outer planets, past the belt of rocks and ice that circled the inner system. The red planet grew larger in their displays. The energy readings grew stronger. The ancient warning continued to broadcast, patient and eternal. On Earth, the people watched the alien fleet move closer. They prayed to their gods. They held their families. They prepared to fight or die. They did not know about the structures on Mars. They did not know about the ancient warning. But somewhere deep beneath the red sand of the fourth planet, something stirred. Something that had waited for 3 billion years. Something that recognized the approaching fleet for what it was. Invaders, predators, a threat to the children it had been created to protect. The Guardians began to wake. And Fleet Commander Vorath, conqueror of 900 worlds, sailed his fleet toward a fate he could not imagine and would not survive to understand. The world had changed in 12 hours. Elena Vasquez had watched it change from behind reinforced glass 50 meters below the Nevada desert. In a facility that did not officially exist. She was the director of Project Sentinel, and she had spent her entire career preparing for this day. Part of her had always hoped it would never come. Now that it was here, she felt strangely calm. The waiting was over. The truth would finally come out above ground. Chaos ruled. The alien transmission had been received everywhere on Earth. Every television, every radio, every phone had carried the message of conquest. Governments denied and then confirmed the authenticity. Military forces moved into position, knowing their weapons were toys compared to what was coming. People rioted in some cities. In others, they gathered in churches and temples and mosques to pray. The world held its breath and waited to die. But Elena knew something the world did not know. Humanity had protectors. They had always had protectors. She walked through the corridors of the underground facility, past scientists who had abandoned their usual work to monitor the approaching fleet. Everyone looked scared. Everyone looked to her for answers she was not yet ready to give. In the central command room, a dozen screens showed different views of the same thing. The alien armada, still days away from Earth, moving past the outer planets with terrible patience. Other screens showed the panic on Earth's surface. But one screen, the largest one, showed something else entirely. It showed Mars. More specifically, it showed what was happening on Mars. Seismic readings from the few sensors. humanity had placed on the red planet showed movement deep underground. Thermal imaging from orbital satellites showed heat blooming across locations that had been cold and dead for as long as humans had been watching. Colonel James Chun stood beside her, his military uniform crisp despite the chaos around them. He was her liaison with the Pentagon, one of the few outside the project who knew the full truth. "How long?" he asked quietly. "They started activating 6 hours ago," Elena replied. "Faster than we predicted. The models suggested they would need days to fully wake up. It seems they were more ready than we thought." Chun watched the screens with hard eyes. "Will it be enough?" Elena did not answer immediately. The truth was, she did not know. No one knew. Project Sentinel had studied the ancient structures for 70 years. Ever since the first one was discovered beneath the Pacific Ocean in 1954, they had learned much about who built them and why. They had learned almost nothing about how powerful they actually were. "It is time to brief the president," she finally said. The video call was established within minutes. On the screen, President Morrison looked like he had not slept since the alien transmission. His eyes were red, his face pale, his voice hoarse. "Director Vasquez," he said, "I'm told you have information that could change our understanding of this situation. Please, we are running out of time." Elena took a deep breath. "Mr. President, what I'm about to tell you is classified beyond any level you have been briefed on. It is the most protected secret in human history. Fewer than 200 people on Earth know the full truth." She activated a presentation that had been prepared decades ago, updated regularly, waiting for this moment. 70 years ago, we discovered structures in the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean. Structures that were clearly artificial but built with technology far beyond anything human. Over the following decades, we found more. Under the ice in Antarctica, buried in the Sahara Desert, hidden in deep caves in the Himalayas, and most importantly, on Mars. Images appeared on the president's screen. Black obelisks, perfectly smooth, impossibly old. Underground chambers filled with machinery that defied understanding. Symbols carved into rock that matched nothing in any human language or culture. "We have spent 7 decades studying these structures," Elena continued. "We cannot reproduce the technology. We barely understand its principles. But we have learned who built them and why." She paused, gathering her words carefully. 4 billion years ago, Mr. President, an ancient species visited our solar system. We call them the architects because that is what they were. They did not evolve here. They came from somewhere else, somewhere far away, and they planted life on Earth. The president stared at her. "What do you mean, planted?" "I mean that life on Earth, all life, including us, exists because the architects deliberately seeded our planet with the basic building blocks of biology. We are their children, Mr. President, their experiment, their legacy, and they left guardians behind to protect us." On the screen showing Mars, the heat signatures were growing stronger. Something was rising from beneath the red sand. Something vast. "The Guardians have been dormant for billions of years," Elena said. "They were programmed to activate only if a specific type of threat appeared. A threat to Earth. A threat to the children the architects left behind." She looked directly at the camera, at the president, at the future of humanity. "Mr. President, the aliens approaching our world have triggered that awakening. The Guardians are active. And I believe, though I cannot prove it, that they are preparing to defend us." On Mars, the first obelisk rose fully from the sand. 30 meters of perfect black stone that drank in the weak sunlight and gave nothing back. It began to hum with power older than complex life on Earth. And in the space between Mars and the asteroid belt, the alien fleet continued its approach. unaware that they were sailing into the arms of something ancient, something patient, something that had been waiting for this moment for longer than their entire species had existed. The Architect's children were threatened. The Guardians would respond. The Conqueror's Pride was a destroyer-class vessel, one of the fastest ships in the Kashari Armada. It carried 3,000 crew members and enough firepower to level a continent. Commander Vorath had ordered it to take point position as the fleet moved past the asteroid belt toward the inner planets. One moment, the Conqueror's Pride was there, its engines burning bright, its crew going about their duties. The next moment, it was gone. No explosion, no flash of light, no debris, no distress signal. The ship simply stopped existing, as if the universe had reached out and erased it from reality. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, silence fell like a heavy blanket. Every officer stared at their screens, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Ships did not simply vanish. Ships exploded or were captured or were destroyed by weapons. They did not just disappear. Fleet Commander Vorath gripped the arms of his command chair, his claws digging into the metal. His mind raced through possibilities. A weapon of some kind? Impossible. There had been no energy discharge, no projectile, nothing. A spatial anomaly? They had detected nothing unusual in their path. "Full stop," he ordered, his voice barely steady. "All ships, full stop immediately." The Armada came to a halt, 1,200 capital ships and their supporting vessels hanging in the void like startled prey. Vorath turned to his sensor operator. "What happened? Where is the Conqueror's Pride?" The operator's hands trembled as she worked her controls. "Commander, I have no reading. The ship is simply gone. There is no debris, no energy signature, no trace of any kind. It is as if the ship never existed. That is impossible." "I know, Commander, but that is what the sensors show." Vorath forced himself to think clearly. He was a fleet commander. He had faced strange threats before. He had always found a way to victory. "Send a probe," he ordered. "Full sensor array. I want to know exactly what is at those coordinates." A probe was launched. It accelerated toward the point where the Conqueror's Pride had vanished. The entire fleet watched its progress on their screens. The probe crossed an invisible line and disappeared. There was no transition, no warning. One frame of sensor data showed the probe moving forward. The next frame showed empty space. The probe was gone, exactly as the ship had been. Vorath stood up from his chair. He needed to see this with his own eyes, not through a screen. He walked to the main viewport and stared out at the stars, at the distant red planet, at the space where two vessels had simply ceased to be. "Commander," his tactical officer said carefully, "what are your orders?" Vorath did not answer immediately. His mind was still struggling to accept what he was seeing. In 60,000 years, the Dominion had encountered many strange things. They had fought species with bizarre weapons and unusual defenses. But they had never encountered anything that could simply erase matter from existence. "Send 3 more ships," he finally said. "Different approach vectors, different speeds. I want to map the boundaries of whatever this is." The 3 ships advanced slowly, cautiously. Their crews knew they might be sailing to their deaths, but they were Kashari, and the Kashari obeyed their commanders. They approached from different angles, maintaining communication with the fleet. All 3 ships vanished at the exact same distance from the red planet, as if they had crossed an invisible wall that surrounded the inner solar system. Panic began to spread through the fleet. Vorath could see it in the eyes of his bridge crew, could hear it in the communications from other ships. Soldiers who had conquered worlds without fear were now terrified. They were facing something they could not fight, could not understand, could not even see. Over the next several hours, Vorath tried everything. He sent ships at maximum speed, hoping to punch through whatever barrier existed. They vanished. He sent ships with full shields and weapons firing, hoping to create a gap. They vanished. He sent ships in tight formations, hoping that numbers would matter. They all vanished. His fleet of 1,200 capital ships was now down to 800. It was the fleet's eldest priest historian who finally provided some context. The old Kashari had spent the hours since the first disappearance studying the ancient warning signal that still broadcast from the Red Planet. "Commander," he said, his voice shaking, "I have analyzed the language of the warning signal. It is not merely old. It is ancient beyond anything in our records. The species that created this language, to build whatever is protecting the system, they were already billions of years old when my ancestors were still single-celled creatures." Vorath stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that we have encountered something that predates the Dominion by so long that comparison is meaningless. Whatever the architects built here, they built it to last forever. And they built it to destroy anything that threatened their children." The word hung in the air. Children. Marath looked toward the blue planet, still visible in the distance, past the deadly barrier that now surrounded it. The primitive species on that world, the creatures he had planned to conquer and enslave, they were someone's children. Someone ancient. Someone powerful. Someone who had prepared for exactly this situation. For the first time in his long career, Fleet Commander Vorath felt genuine fear. Not for his life, but for his entire species. What had the Dominion awakened? What had they challenged? And what would happen when the beings who built this barrier decided that erasing ships was not enough? On Earth, humanity watched in confused wonder as the alien fleet began to die. Telescopes around the world tracked the invaders. Scientists counted the ships, watched them advance, waited for the end to come. But then the ships started disappearing. One here, 3 there, then dozens at a time. The great armada that had seemed so unstoppable was being eaten away by something invisible. Nobody on Earth understood what was happening. Wild theories spread across the internet. Some said it was a secret weapon built by governments. Others said it was God himself protecting his children. A few scientists quietly noted the energy readings coming from Mars, but could make no sense of them. In the underground facility in Nevada, Director Elena Vasquez watched with tears running down her face. She understood exactly what was happening. The Guardians were awake, and they were doing what they had been created to do. How many ships have they lost? President Morrison asked through the video link. "Over 400 so far," Elena replied. "They keep trying different approaches, but nothing works. The barrier seems to extend in a sphere around the inner solar system, centered roughly on Mars. Nothing crosses it and survives." The president was silent for a long moment. "And we have no control over this? No way to communicate with these Guardians?" "No, Mr. President. We have tried for 70 years. The architects did not design them to respond to us. They were designed to protect us, not to take orders from us. We are children to them, nothing more." On the alien flagship, Fleet Commander Vorath faced a choice he had never imagined making. His fleet had lost half its ships. 400,000 Kashari warriors had simply ceased to exist. And they had not even reached the target planet. His officers looked to him for guidance, but he had none to give. Every strategy he knew was useless against an enemy that could not be seen or fought. His weapons were meaningless. His ships were coffins waiting to happen. "Commander," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a new transmission. Not the warning signal. Something different." Vorath turned sharply. "Source?" "The Red Planet, Commander. Direct transmission. It is addressing us specifically. Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with ancient power. The voice that emerged was not natural. It was synthesized, constructed, a machine speaking in sounds designed for Kashari ears. But the words carried weight that seemed to press down on everyone who heard them. Invaders of the Dominion, you have threatened the children of the architects. You have ignored our warning. You have sacrificed your soldiers to test our resolve. Now hear our judgment. Vorath felt his heart pounding in his chest. Around him, his bridge crew stood frozen. This system is claimed, the voice continued. These children are protected. Your conquest ends here. Your empire ends here. We have watched your dominion spread across the stars for 10,000 of years. We have seen you destroy and enslave and consume. We allowed this because it was not our purpose to interfere in the affairs of younger species. The voice paused, and when it returned, it seemed to carry infinite weight. But you have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. You have threatened what we were created to protect. The children of the architects will not be your slaves. They will not be your cattle. They will not be another trophy for your empire of cruelty. Vorath found his voice. What do you want? What will make you let us leave? You will leave, the voice replied. You will carry a message back to your masters. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them what you have lost. Tell them that the architect's children are under our protection, and any force sent against them will meet the same fate as your fleet. And if we deliver this message, you will let us go? Silence stretched for several seconds. When the voice returned, it carried something that might have been dark amusement. You misunderstand, Commander. We are not negotiating. We are not offering mercy. We are giving you a purpose in the moments before your end. Some of you will survive to carry our message. Most of you will not. Vorath's blood ran cold. You said we could leave. We said you will leave. We did not say how many of you. The barrier began to move. On Earth, astronomers watched in amazement as the invisible death that had been holding position suddenly expanded outward. More alien ships vanished. Then more. The fleet that had numbered 1,200 ships was now barely 300, and the number kept falling. Vorath screamed orders. Retreat. Full speed. Every ship for itself. The organized armada became a panicked mob, every vessel trying to escape the spreading death. Some ships folded space, jumping blindly to anywhere that was not here. Many of those jumps failed, the ships torn apart by hasty calculations or lost forever in the void between stars. The barrier kept expanding, kept consuming, kept erasing. When it finally stopped, 89 ships remained. 89 out of 1,200. Less than 8% of the mightiest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled. The voice came one last time, broadcasting to every surviving vessel. Go now, survivors. Go and tell your masters what happened here. Tell them that the architect's children are awakening to their heritage. Tell them that humanity is not alone. And tell them this: if the Dominion ever threatens this system again, we will not stop at the fleet. We will come to your homeworld. We will come to every world you have conquered. And we will do to your empire what we have done to your ships. The surviving Kashari needed no further encouragement. They fled, jumping to fold space with desperate speed, running from this cursed system as fast as their damaged ships could carry them. Behind them, the barrier contracted back to its original position. The red planet returned to silence. The obelisks on its surface slowly dimmed, their purpose fulfilled. Returning to their patient sleep dot, and on Earth, 8 billion humans looked up at the stars, not knowing that they had just been saved by guardians they had never known existed. The invasion was over, but humanity's real test was only beginning. The Dominion of Kashar fell in a single generation. When the 89 surviving ships returned to their space, they carried more than the shame of defeat. They carried a signal buried deep in their navigation computers, a signal they did not know was there until it was too late. The signal broadcast itself across every world the Dominion controlled, carrying a simple message. The Masters can bleed. The Masters can die. The Masters can be destroyed. 1,000 subjugated worlds rose up in rebellion. Species that had been slaves for centuries saw their chance and took it. The Kashari military, spread thin across their vast empire, could not contain the fires that burned everywhere at once. Within 30 years, the Dominion was a memory, its people scattered, its power broken forever. On Earth, humanity struggled to understand what had happened. The official story, carefully crafted by world governments working together for the first time in history, was that the aliens had encountered some kind of natural phenomenon that destroyed their fleet. An anomaly, a freak occurrence, lucky for humanity, unlucky for the invaders. Few believed it, but there was no other explanation to offer. The truth was released slowly, over years. First came the acknowledgement that structures existed on Mars that were not natural. Then came the admission that similar structures existed on Earth. Then, finally, came the full revelation. Humanity was not alone in the universe, had never been alone, and owed its existence to beings so ancient that human minds could barely comprehend them. Director Elena Vasquez was there for every revelation. She watched the world's reaction change from denial to fear to wonder to something like pride. Humanity was not an accident. Humanity was meant to be. Humanity was the children of the architects, inheritors of a legacy billions of years old. 5 years after the invasion, Elena stood on the surface of Mars. She wore a pressure suit and breathed recycled air. But she was really there, standing on alien soil, looking up at one of the obelisks that had saved her species. The obelisk towered 30 meters above her, perfectly black, perfectly smooth, perfectly silent. It had been dormant since the invaders fled. The Guardians had done their job and returned to their long sleep. But they had left something behind. In the months following the invasion, signals had begun emanating from the obelisks. Not warnings, not threats, but information. Technical data. Scientific knowledge. History. The architects had left a message for their children, a message that would only be delivered when the children were ready to receive it. Elena had spent years studying the message, translating it, understanding it. Now she stood before the obelisk that had transmitted the most important part of that message, the part that would change humanity forever. Colonel Chun stood beside her, his own pressure suit marked with the insignia of the newly formed United Earth Space Command. The world had united in the wake of the invasion, old enemies becoming allies, old borders becoming meaningless. When you learn that hostile aliens are real, old human conflicts suddenly seem very small. "Are you ready?" Chun asked through the suit radio. Elena nodded. "Play it." Chun activated a recording device. The words of the architects, translated into human languages, filled Elena's helmet. "Children of Earth, if you are hearing this message, then you have faced your first great trial. You have encountered predators from the stars, and you have survived. This was not luck. This was not accident. This was our design." Elena closed her eyes, listening to words spoken by beings who had lived and died before Earth even had oceans. "We planted life on your world 4 billion years ago. We gave you the spark of existence and left you to grow. We did not guide you. We did not teach you. We wanted you to become what you would become through your own struggles, your own choices, your own strength." The voice paused, and when it continued, Elena heard something that sounded almost like affection. "You have exceeded our hopes. You have grown faster than we predicted. You have reached for the stars earlier than we expected. But this means you are vulnerable. Your technology is young. Your defenses are weak. You are children in a galaxy full of predators. Elena opened her eyes and looked up at the stars, now visible in the thin Martian atmosphere. We left guardians to protect you. They have done their duty, but they will not protect you forever. They were designed for one purpose: to give you time. Time to grow. Time to learn. Time to build your own defenses. The message continued, and now it carried weight and warning. You have 200 years. That is how long the Guardians will remain active. After that, they will sleep forever, and you will be alone. In 200 years, the Predators will return. Maybe the Dominion, maybe others. The galaxy is full of species who take what they want and destroy what they cannot use. Chun shifted beside her, his hand moving to the weapon at his hip, a reflex born of a lifetime of military service. Use the time well, children of Earth. We have given you knowledge to start your journey. Use it. Build ships that can cross the stars. Build weapons that can defend your world. Build alliances with other species, for there are many who will be your friends if you prove worthy of friendship. The voice grew softer, carrying across billions of years of patience and hope. You are not alone. You are part of a legacy that spans the galaxy. The architects are gone, but our children live on. Find them, learn from them, stand with them against the darkness. And when the predators come again, show them what the children of the architects have become. The message ended. Silence filled Elena's helmet, broken only by her own breathing. Chun spoke first. 200 years. Elena nodded slowly. 200 years to become worthy of our inheritance. 200 years to grow teeth of our own. She looked down at the red sand beneath her boots, at the ancient obelisk before her, at the blue dot of Earth visible in the Martian sky. Humanity had been given a gift and a challenge. They had been saved once. They would not be saved again. But Elena felt no fear. She felt determination. She felt pride. Humanity had come from nothing, had built civilizations and art and science with nothing but their own hands and minds. They had reached for the stars on their own. Now they knew the stakes. Now they knew the truth. And if the architects had taught her anything, it was that humanity was capable of more than anyone had ever imagined. 200 years. Humanity intended to be ready. The stars were waiting, and the children of the architects were finally coming home.